Alright, so thank you for joining me on my review of Yakuza Kiwami. If you aren't already aware, Yakuza Kiwami is a remake of the original Yakuza. The original Yakuza released on PS2 in 2005 in Japan and then 2006 in Europe and America. Now, this is actually the first Yakuza game I have actually played, but I've always heard really good things about it. But at the same time, I've heard it's a very niche game, so I was kind of worried about getting into it. But yeah, let me go into the game and I'll give you my review for it.
Shut the fuck up!
So to give a brief summary of the game is basically about an ex-Yakuza guy who ends up becoming ex-Yakuza because his best friend ends up murdering their boss. He takes the blame for this and goes to prison for 10 years, and once he gets out, finds out things have drastically changed, including that the Yakuza now wants him dead. Our main character, Kiryu, is looking for his old flame, and instead ends up finding a little girl and getting wrapped into a gang war that has a slight hand in politics as well. I won't talk too much more about the plot, but I do want to mention that, the game being called Yakuza, your main character is the exact opposite of the Yakuza. Like, he's kind of a stone-cold badass, but at the same time, the worst thing you ever see him do is beat up people because they don't pay for stuff. It was ironic whenever I, thought about how people had told me this game was like GTA, because in reality it couldn't be further from the truth. The main character might as well be a saint. You can't do anything to hurt anybody who isn't just begging for it. And the minigames are actually fun. But, moving along, let's get on to the cons. For our cons, first of all, I thought the story was really good. It sometimes can seem quite convoluted, but at the same time, it has enough to keep you attached, and you probably won't get lost too often. Another con for this is that there's plenty of side story and mini games. One of the, like I said, one of the big pulls of this is the mini games and the side story. There's just a lot in here to do other than the main story that you're gonna want to be doing, which is awesome because you really don't see that very often from video games. And then last pro I want to mention for the game is just how funny some of the side stories / mini games can be. For a game that involves, gang wars and politics, this game is not afraid to stretch out its sense of humor. If you haven't already seen it, I've actually uploaded a video of this, or at least one of the better scenes in the game, that had me cracking up for quite a while. Alright, and while it doesn't seem like we had too many pros, we're going to move on to the cons now, which is actually a pretty big list, but, do keep in mind, part of the reason I believe my cons list is so great is because I want to see these games do better, and for all I know, they have. Like I mentioned, this is the only actual Yakuza game I've played. So, moving on to the cons, one of the first big cons I noticed was that the karaoke game sucked. Yeah, maybe that's not like too big of a con, but it just seemed really odd from Sega to release a shitty karaoke minigame whenever their other minigames actually were fun. And Sega's known for their rhythm games. How did they miss it so much on this? And another thing that kind of runs in with that is that you end up going to a Sega arcade, and there's like lots of little Sega retro older games on the arcades, and you can't play those as part of the mini games. This is a Sega game. You're walking into a Sega arcade, you see the game there, but you can't actually play them, which I feel is a huge miss. I would love to be playing Virtua Fighter on it. Another pretty glaring con on this game is that battles get super repetitive pretty fast. You're pretty much just trying to build up a special meter by landing as many hits as you can on the opponent without taking hits yourself, until eventually you can use your super moves, which I believe were called heat actions or finishers. There's different ones. But then, of course, it drains the entire meter after you use those supers, and you're back to trying to hit them enough times without being hit yourself. It gets super repetitive, even with the different styles. Like, there's 4 different fighting styles, which, I mean, I guess could be mentioned as a pro on here. But at the same time, they don't add enough depth to really not make it repetitive, which hurts this game a lot because 90% of the time you're going to be fighting. You can't even walk down a single street without running into some people. I mean, hell, the amount of people you beat in this game, literally the entire city has to be in the hospital. And that kind of leads me to another mention for a con. Another con is the difficulty levels. Now, I started off on normal, and I played through, and I beat my game on normal, but I kind of went back and tried doing the final stages on easy, and it was just ridiculous. I really can't imagine trying to play the game on hard, just because the difficulty spike between easy and normal were so ridiculous. And honestly, after playing it on easy, I wish I had played it on easy, because I probably would have enjoyed this story a lot more if I wasn't just frustrated with the fights. Okay, another con I would like to mention, which, I mean, I don't know that necessarily this is so much a con, as much as just seeing, where the game could go, but I would like to see it more like GTA. And by that, really, I mean the freedom of GTA, where you could just attack a random civilian on the street. I mean, it makes sense for a Yakuza game, but like I said, you're playing the Saint, so clearly that wasn't an option for this. Another actual con for this game is that some quests are just plain annoying. Like, even main story quests sometimes will literally just have you walking from place to place for no real smart fucking reason. Especially considering it's, in these moments that your guy is suddenly not a stone cold badass. There's times whenever your main character will take on, an entire gang all by himself. But then there's, another part where one guy comes around and starts bossing your dude around, and you do it for no real good reason, and then end up fighting him later in the end anyways. I mean, it's nice to have an open world, but if the whole point of your open world is just running around back and forth to run errands, it gets annoying pretty fast. Okay, and the last of my cons for this game is pretty much a con I have on most games, 90% of the games I review, is there wasn't customization for my main character. Whenever you go to hang out with women in the game, they, comment on, "You're always wearing the same thing," and I thought for a moment, wait a minute, am I going to be able to change the clothes of my character? But no, they meant the gear I had equipped. And it just made me kind of think of how much cooler the game would have been if I could actually change my main character's clothes or hairstyle or whatever. This is just something that a lot of game developers seem to be missing on. It's a really easy thing to add to the game and just add so much more to your game at the same time. But that's all I'm going to rant for Yakuza Kiwami. But I do want to say that my score for this game is a 7 out of 10. I know it sounded like I had a whole lot of cons because, I do. I'm very critical of games, even ones I like. Hell, probably more, especially the ones that I do like. Because I would definitely recommend this game to anyone. Seriously, it's $30 right now. And it's a full game. They're not going to release DLC later on down the road. That's the rest of the game. Not to mention, cheaper than other incomplete games, so as I've mentioned several times before, you've paid much more for significantly less. Also, it comes in a really cool steelbook case. I'm loving how PS4 is having a lot of these steelbook cases. Definitely digging them. But that's going to be all for my Yakuza Kiwami review. I do hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like it if you enjoyed it. And, you can leave in the comments what you enjoyed or what you did not enjoy. And just comment on how much you hate me. That is what YouTube was made for, right? Also, don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified anytime I do upload any more reviews or so forth. And most importantly, don't forget to take care of yourselves.